Welcome back to our channel on this beautiful, crisp day, where we dive deep into the intricate and ever-evolving drama of Genoa City. We are thrilled to have you with us as we unpack the latest explosive developments that are about to send shockwaves through our favorite families. Let us jump right into the heart of the impending storm. The sudden and inexplicable disappearance of Matt Clark has cast a suffocating shroud of tension over Genoa City, but nowhere is the atmospheric pressure more volatile than within the fractured psyche of Phyllis Summers. For Phyllis, this is not merely a missing persons case, it is a visceral, agonizing repetition of historical trauma. Her relationship with Matt, built on a fragile foundation of mutual brokenness and an intoxicating promise of redemption, had become her emotional anchor. His sudden absence has violently severed that tether, plunging her into a chaotic abyss of paranoia, grief, and blinding rage. Every ticking second without him amplifies the deafening echoes of her past, reminding her of every time she has been stripped of happiness by unseen, malevolent forces. The silence left in Matt's wake is not empty. To Phyllis, it is heavily pregnant with the dark, manipulative signatures of her eternal adversaries, the Newman family, whom she believes are always waiting in the shadows to orchestrate her downfall. The dismissive attitudes of Adam and Victor Newman have only poured gasoline on the inferno of Phyllis's suspicions. When she confronted them, demanding answers about Matt's whereabouts, their cold, calculated denials did not register as innocence in her mind. Instead, they perfectly mirrored the arrogant gaslighting she has endured from the Newman patriarch for decades. Phyllis possesses a survival instinct honed through years of bitter psychological warfare, and that instinct is currently screaming that the official narrative is a carefully constructed lie. She refuses to be placated by Adam's exasperated brush-offs or Victor's intimidating, stony silence. In her profoundly agitated state, their sheer lack of concern is the ultimate, undeniable proof of their guilt. The more they insist on their detachment from Matt's vanishing act, the more Phyllis's confirmation bias solidifies, transforming her frantic, weeping worry into a cold, hardened resolve to shatter their impenetrable facade and expose the rot beneath. To truly understand Phyllis's current dangerous trajectory, one must delve into the deep emotional wounds that define her existence and dictate her reactions. She is a woman who loves with a terrifying, consuming intensity, and when that love is threatened, her protective measures border on the sociopathic. Matt represented a mirror to her own flawed soul, a fellow pariah striving for a second chance in a city that rarely forgives. His disappearance feels like a direct, targeted assault on her own right to exist and find peace. Her mind, perpetually wired for conflict and betrayal, immediately constructs a narrative where Victor Newman, the ultimate puppeteer, is pulling the strings to punish her. It does not matter to Phyllis that Matt has a sprawling history of dangerous enemies from his criminal past, or that logical clues might point elsewhere. In her reality, all roads of suffering inevitably lead back to the Newman ranch, locking her into a dangerous tunnel vision where vengeance against Victor is the only logical path forward. Driven by this unyielding paranoia and a desperate need for control, Phyllis makes the fateful decision to launch her own clandestine investigation. She knows that the local authorities will be too slow, too bound by legal protocol, and ultimately too easily manipulated by Victor's vast overarching resources. She must step back into the shadows, resurrecting the ruthless, investigative persona that has both saved and damned her in the past. This solo mission is born of profound desperation and a refusal to be a passive victim. Every step she takes away from the light of legitimate inquiry is a step deeper into her own psychological labyrinth. The emotional toll is staggering. She is operating on pure adrenaline, caffeine, and a toxic cocktail of fear and fury. Yet, the prospect of uncovering the truth and saving the man who finally saw her for who she truly is propels her forward, rendering her entirely immune to the physical exhaustion threatening to collapse her body. The physical act of breaching Matt's apartment is a deeply intimate and profoundly unsettling violation. As Phyllis slips through the door, bypassing the locks with practiced ease, the eerie, stagnant silence of the empty space hits her like a physical blow to the chest. The air still holds the faint, lingering scent of his cologne, a cruel, sensory reminder of the warmth and vitality that has been abruptly extinguished from her world. She stands in the center of the living room, her heart hammering violently against her ribs, wrestling with the moral conflict of invading his private sanctuary. This was the space where they had shared whispered confessions, vulnerable moments, and fragile hopes for the future. Now, it has been transformed into a cold crime scene, a puzzle box holding the dark secrets to his sudden demise. The stark juxtaposition of their intimate memories against the harsh reality of his absence fuels her determination, transforming her sorrow into a razor-sharp, investigative focus. Phyllis's search of the apartment is nothing short of forensic in its intensity and desperation. She does not merely look, she dissects the environment with the precision of a woman whose life depends on what she finds. Her hands tremble slightly as she sifts through his personal belongings, her eyes scanning for anomalies, hidden compartments, or anything remotely out of place. She tears apart the obvious hiding spots, drawers, closets, beneath the mattress, behind picture frames driven by a manic, obsessive energy that refuses to accept defeat. The psychological weight of this invasion is heavy, a constant, nagging reminder of the trust she is violating in the name of salvation. Yet, her mind rationalizes every overturned cushion and emptied file cabinet. She is searching for a lifeline, a breadcrumb left behind by a man who lived his entire life, anticipating betrayal and preparing for the worst. She knows Matt's mind, knows his penchant for secrecy, and she relies on that dark synergy to guide her frantic hands. Hours into her exhaustive search, just as crushing despair threatens to eclipse her manic drive, her relentless persistence yields a chilling, monumental reward. Concealed with expert precision behind a loose baseboard in the deepest corner of the bedroom closet, Phyllis discovers a hidden cache. Her breath catches painfully in her throat as she extracts a worn, leather-bound personal diary and a small, highly sophisticated electronic tracking device. The physical reaction to this discovery is instantaneous. A cold sweat breaks out across her skin, and a nauseating, dizzying wave of vindication washes over her. The mere existence of these hidden objects validates her darkest, most terrifying fears. Matt was not merely a man trying to outrun his past, he was actively documenting a present, lethal danger. The weight of the diary in her hands feels like holding a ticking time bomb, a tangible, explosive manifestation of the secrets that have violently ripped him from her life. With trembling fingers and a racing heart, Phyllis opens the diary, her eyes darting across Matt's frantic, cramped handwriting. The entries are not the peaceful musings of a man seeking redemption, but the paranoid, desperate chronicles of someone trapped in a sprawling, dangerous web of manipulation. He details clandestine meetings, veiled threats, and forced compliances that paint a horrifying picture of his recent days. While the names are often obscured by initials or clever aliases, the overarching shadow of a massive, controlling entity is unmistakable on every page. The narrative painted within those worn pages hints at a dark, sweeping conspiracy, an entanglement with shadow operations that reek of the Newman patriarch's signature modus operandi. Phyllis reads with a growing sense of absolute horror and grim, twisted satisfaction. Every cryptic sentence, every documented fear, aligns perfectly with her preconceived notion that Victor Newman is the grand architect of this nightmare. The diary provides the psychological scaffolding for her grand theory of Newman culpability. The sophisticated tracking device accompanying the diary is the physical anchor to the psychological horror found in the pages, serving as the ultimate catalyst for Phyllis's rage. She examines the small, heavy piece of technology, recognizing it immediately, not as a simple consumer-grade gadget, but as a piece of high-level, military-grade surveillance equipment. To her paranoid mind, this is the undeniable, glowing signature of Victor Newman's obsessive need for omnipotent control over those in his orbit. She hypothesizes that Matt had either discovered the device planted on him or had managed to intercept it, keeping it hidden as desperate leverage or proof of his subjugation. The tracker connects Matt directly to a vast network of surveillance and manipulation that only someone with Victor's boundless, unchecked resources could maintain. In Phyllis's twisted but fiercely logical deduction, the device is the smoking gun, the irrefutable, damning link between the missing man she loves and the billionaire who has made a career of crushing anyone who defies him. The culmination of this evidence, the paranoid, desperate diary entries, and the high-tech surveillance device, cements Phyllis's belief into an unbreakable, absolute certainty that defies all logic or alternative explanation. She concludes, without a shadow of a doubt, that Victor Newman orchestrated Matt's disappearance to serve his own malicious ends. Her mind rapidly constructs the horrifying scenario: Victor, viewing Matt as a liability, a threat to his family, or a pawn in some grander, more sinister game, had him neutralized and removed from the board entirely. The narrative is flawless in her eyes, perfectly aligning with her historical understanding of Victor's God complex and his history of eliminating obstacles. She completely disregards any possibility that Matt's own extensive criminal past, or an old enemy, might have caught up with him. The old debts, the former rivals, all of it is swept away by the overwhelming, blinding light of her Newman-centric conspiracy. Victor did this. Victor took him. This singular, unshakable truth becomes the new, dangerous foundation of her reality. The emotional transition within Phyllis in that dim apartment is profound, permanent, and utterly terrifying. The frantic, weeping panic that characterized the initial hours of Matt's absence evaporates entirely, replaced by a cold, calculated, and lethal fury that settles deep in her bones. She realizes with chilling clarity that Matt is in grave, immediate danger, suffering at the hands of her greatest enemy. He is not merely missing, he is a captive, being subjected to the ruthless whims of a man who views human lives as expendable assets on a chessboard. This realization strips away any lingering hesitation, any moral ambiguity, and any fear for her own safety. Phyllis is no longer just a worried, heartbroken lover. She is a warrior preparing for a brutal, unyielding siege. The deep empathy she feels for Matt's suffering fuels a dark, sociopathic edge to her determination. She will not be a victim again, and she will absolutely not allow Matt to be a casualty of the Newman Empire's collateral damage. Her grief weaponizes, transforming into a sharp, focused instrument of total destruction. Standing in the dim, oppressive light of the violated apartment, clutching the damning evidence tightly to her chest, Phyllis makes a silent, blood-chilling vow that will alter the course of Genoa City forever. She will expose the truth, no matter the catastrophic cost to herself or others, and she will tear down the pristine, hypocritical facade of the Newman legacy brick by brick. She vows to save Matt, pulling him from whatever dark, subterranean hole Victor has thrown him into, and she will ensure that the patriarch pays in unimaginable, agonizing ways. The moral conflict of how far she is willing to go briefly flickers in her mind. She remembers the literal blood on her hands from Jeremy Stark, the absolute darkness she is capable of when pushed to the absolute brink of survival. But she embraces that darkness fully now, welcoming it as an old friend. If Victor Newman wants to play a game of gods and monsters, she is more than willing to show him the true, unhinged monster she can become when she has nothing left to lose. The impending war will not be fought in polite boardrooms or sterile courtrooms. It will be a brutal psychological slaughter executed in the shadows. As Phyllis meticulously packs the diary and the tracker into her bag, carefully erasing all physical traces of her presence in the apartment, a terrifying, unnatural calm settles over her entirely. She is a woman possessed by a singular, highly destructive purpose, stripped of all earthly fears. She steps out into the Genoa City night, the cool, biting air doing absolutely nothing to extinguish the roaring inferno raging within her soul. The Newman family sits comfortably in their heavily guarded ranch, entirely oblivious to the fact that they have just ignited a volatile powder keg of grief and vengeance that will soon consume their entire world in flames. Phyllis is coming for them, armed with explosive secrets, fueled by a dangerous, desperate love, and completely unbound by any ethical constraints or legal boundaries. As she disappears into the inky darkness, ready to launch a catastrophic offensive that will shake the very foundations of the city, one chilling, unanswered question hangs heavily in the night air. When Phyllis finally unleashes her devastating, obsessive vengeance upon the Newman Empire, will she actually save the man she loves, or will her blinding fury inadvertently trigger the very execution she is so desperately trying to prevent?